Alright guys, get comfy. It's my turn in the hot seat to discuss one of the most polarizing films to come out all year. People were saying that they felt like they were eternally stuck to their seats. No, not yet. But was it really that bad? I respectfully disagree. Guys, my name is Zack. I love discussing all things cinema, all things the MCU, all things entertainment in general. And as always, I really do appreciate you guys clicking on this thumbnail today. I really hope you enjoy your stay, because on the docket today is Eternals. Movie number 26 in the seemingly never-ending Marvel Cinematic Multiverse, as it's seemingly dubbed now by most geeks on here. I'm not complaining, guys. And with Marvel Studios' name on it, surely I was hyped for it. It's directed by Academy Award winner Chloé, fresh off of her historic wins for Nomadland, and it stars a humongous ensemble cast: Gemma Chan, Richard Madden, Kumail Nanjiani, Brian Tyree Henry, Angelina Jolie, just to name a few. And judging from the title, this film follows, well, the Eternals. They're a race of immortal beings with superhuman powers, and they've secretly lived on Earth for thousands of years. And they all conglomerate and reunite to battle their evil counterparts, the Deviants. Okay, so I'm really on the hot seat right now. So many of you guys have been so anxious to hear my thoughts about this. Was I gonna love this movie? Was I gonna despise it like Rotten Tomatoes apparently does? Regardless of what critics have been saying about it, after the roll that Marvel has been on this year, it's pumping out classic after classic like WandaVision, Shang-Chi, Loki especially. With all that said, I liked this movie. Quite a bit, actually. I didn't love it, though. There are multiple issues that Eternals has, which I'll certainly get to later on. And keep in mind, I'm approaching this review as the impartial, unbiased film goer, as opposed to the big MCU geek that I am. But let's start with the positives, because honestly, there's a fair amount. Most obviously in the filmmaking. Chloé Zhao directed the out of this movie. There is no taking that away from her, and honestly, I would not be surprised if she's nominated for a repeat in that category at the Oscars. The direction along with the cinematography in this movie provided by Ben Davis, it just makes Eternals feel so grand in every facet. The atmosphere of this film, nothing short of majestic. The scope is ginormous. If I were you, I would make every attempt to see this movie, preferably on the biggest possible screen you could find. Eternals was made for the IMAX experience. Not to mention, guys, this score. My lord, this score is the stuff of royalty. I mean, considering it's Ramin Djawadi who also scored Game of Thrones, funny enough, considering two of our main actors are also famous from Game of Thrones, it should be no surprise how epic the music is. Eternals just may be top 5 MCU movies just based on the filmmaking prowess by itself. It does in fact rival only what Infinity War and Endgame both accomplished production-wise. Now obviously there's much more to a movie than filmmaking, but there is no denying that this is a gigantic-looking comic book extravaganza, to say the very least. It's shot on location, natural lighting. There were loads of instances where I was reminded of the cinematography in The Revenant, starring Leonardo DiCaprio, otherwise known as the best cinematography I've ever seen. That's saying something, my friends. So on that note, right there, right there, guys, I object to the motion that this is the MCU's worst film, especially when Thor: The Dark World exists. I mean, come on, this movie's way better than that. So yes, obviously this movie is humongous, but Chloé Zhao is also very careful in grounding these characters in the big emotional story beats. And I found so many moments within Eternals that were just so heartwarming. This is a family-oriented film for sure. Not necessarily in terms of the content, but the themes, it's all about love and dysfunctional families and how these bonds tie them all together. Despite any sort of obstacles they face and whatever rivalries may arise, whatever drama may arise rather, this is still a family. And that to me is my biggest praise that I can give Eternals. This is the thing that I really think makes this film work. It's the characters and the dynamic they share with one another. And there are just so many to list off, in no particular order, but let me just say that across the board, the performances in Eternals are outstanding. Gemma Chan as Circe is essentially our main character of the bunch, and I'm convinced that Chan is a badass superstar. Definitely without question the most refined and fleshed out character arc of all of our leads in this, and she carries herself so well. As does Richard Madden as Icarus, who is literally just Superman. He looks like Superman, he has the same powers as Superman, so it's easy to kind of guess what kind of jokes and jabs are thrown into the mix regarding his character. I hope hope I'm not spoiling anything by saying that, but I adored Madden's approach to this role as well. He was my favorite part of Game of Thrones for a while up until the infamous Red Wedding, and similar to Gemma Chan, all the decisions he makes for the character are sound. And that brings me to a quick little side tangent I want to get out of the way. There are some bold choices this script makes, not only for the characters, but also with the intimacy between Cersei and Icarus especially. And I think the bold choices and the willingness to go for the unique is what will make Eternal stand out. And that's what makes it all the better. All this just makes me super excited to see what the future of this team actually holds. I gotta talk about Angelina Jolie as well. God tier in this movie as Thena. She is such a badass, mysterious character, and I'm just so happy to see her in a good live-action film under the Disney banner for once. I said good film, but as we all like to say, Angelina Jolie certainly understood the assignment, and this is a very fascinating character arc in her own right. I don't want to get too deep into spoilers, but I really grew to love her character. I was kind of iffy on her when we were actually introduced to her, but man, I grew to adore her. Speaking of, Kumail Nanjiani, my boy, I was so happy to see him do so well in this. Fucking nails it as Kingo, and thinking more and more about it just sitting here in this proverbial hot seat, he was my favorite character. Seriously, he's like the Bollywood Sean Connery from the 60s, a freaking superstar for the generation. And I actually gotta applaud him real quick, because he got into the best shape of his life for this role. I'm sure he had help from his good friend Dave Bautista along the way, but much like Angelina Jolie, Nanjiani understands the assignment. And all the geeky film talk that he brought to the table, along with his personal valet, that was a very endearing dynamic in its own right, don't get me wrong. But all of his stuff just really made me smile from ear to ear. Honestly, couldn't help myself as both an actor and a content creator. And if you've ever seen his other films like Stuber or The Big Sick, you would know that his comedic timing is impeccable. That does not change. A lot of people I've noticed criticize the comedic elements of this movie thinking it was out of place, but you know what? We got just enough of his character where the comedy never really feels overbearing, and every single punchline actually feels earned, and he sells every single moment of it. I cannot wait to see more of this character, because he surprisingly provides a lot of levity himself, especially in the relationships that Kingo shares with Icarus and Sprite, respectively. While I'm on the topic, I gotta talk about Leah McHugh, because she was magnificent as well. Sprite is basically a child who can never grow up. You put two and two together and you figure out her arc. I thought it was great. All of these actors, actually. Don Lee as Gilgamesh gives a very heartfelt performance. Barry Keoghan as Druig is very passionate and real in this film. Salma Hayek as Ajak is a natural-born leader, one of her best performances in years. Lauren Ridloff makes her presence felt in this universe as Makari after her breakthrough in The Walking Dead. Absolutely loved all of these characters. They were so much fun to watch. Most of all, if Kingo was not my favorite character, that distinction would for sure go to Brian Tyree Henry as Fastus. And I've noticed that he is very popular with a lot of my fellow cinephiles on here. Shout out to a couple of excellent content creators, Real James and Chili Boy Productions, who both adored him. He is literally the next great Marvel genius after Tony Stark. His ability to invent and create these helpful gizmos on the fly to help out the team was so much fun to see. And it just warmed my heart to finally see some true LGBTQ plus representation in one of these big films. In the MCU, for that matter. Eternals is without a doubt the most ambitious MCU project to date. It carries so many themes of love, dysfunctional families, loads of allegories to God and the creation of man. It's talking about confronting your own mortality. It's a ton. But that does bring me to my huge issue with this film. Now, first things first, I realize a lot of people have trashed this movie's pacing, especially with its runtime, and they're not wrong. This is a very beefy 2 hours and 37 minutes of content. But believe it or not, guys, I did not have a problem with this. I will admit, though, the first act does feel rather clunky, especially when you compare it to the latter half of the film, which I loved. But you know how in theater, especially on opening night, even the most seasoned performers will get those butterflies in their stomach, and it kind of takes them a second to find their footing and really get into the groove. That's what this movie felt like. I honestly don't really feel like it reached its full apex of what it was trying to say until about maybe 30 minutes into it, and I understand where those people are coming from, wanting a faster paced film. But I got news for you. sometimes slow burns can be a good thing. I mean, especially with this many characters, I honestly wish the movie were longer. You know, that way so certain characters, Dane Whitman, could have felt warranted to be there. Now, Kit Harington, most famously Jon Snow, is great when he's visible on screen as Cersei's new love interest. Now, if you don't know who Dane Whitman is in the comics, I'll save that for the spoiler review. But if you go into this theater, especially if you're a big mark for Jon Snow, if you're expecting a lot of Kit Harington, you're gonna be disappointed. Guaranteed. Because, mild spoiler, this is as deep as I'm gonna go. After the first act, Kit Harington vanishes from this film. At least until the very end, which is a darn shame because I love Kit Harington. I would have loved to have seen more of him, which is something else that I can get to into the spoiler review, but I want to talk about my biggest issue with Eternals for right now. Believe it or not, it's actually this script. It had 4 writers. 4. Now, Chloé Zhao, of course, was included on this list, and I don't think she's to blame for what I'm about to talk about, but there were certain pieces of dialogue where it really felt like the story heads were talking down to the audience, as if we didn't know what was happening. That could be related to the fact that this movie has loads of expository speeches thrown into the mix, but this should be expected. It's an origin story for some weird characters. Now, if too much exposition was the problem in Eternals, then by that logic, Doctor Strange had too much exposition. I think this movie could have been fixed if they just stuck with one writer, Chloé Zhao herself. So that way, like, imagine that, a director fully realizing her vision with her own script, and the big, gigantic studio even backing that. It honestly felt like in this cut, it felt like her vision kind of had the proverbial shackles on it. Now, before I give you guys my grade for this, one more piece of food for thought. Would Eternals have worked better as a TV series? Perhaps, because like I said, this is a lot of characters that they had to dig deep into. But one thing's for damn sure, I've really dug every single one of them. I can't wait to see more of these Eternals. I really dug this first film. I'm gonna give Eternals a B+. This is far from Marvel's worst outing yet, guys. But if it makes the naysayers feel any better, Eternals is definitely not in my top 5. I'm sorry. I really did like it, guys. You're gonna hate me even more. I don't even think it cracks my top 10. It's true, though. I do like it, guys. But I would definitely go and rewatch Eternals over something like Captain Marvel, for example. I think Eternals is beautifully helmed, wonderfully directed. Yes, it has some pacing issues. Yes, it has severe writing flaws. But I, for one, had a marvelous time with this. Thank you. Yes, I'll be here all week. Phew, hot seat time over. But guys, thank you so much for clicking on this video. Feel free to sound off as much as you like down in the comment section below. What did you guys think of Eternals? Did you love it? Did you despise it? And also, feel free to let me know who your favorite character in this group was. Because as you know, I love discussing all things MCU, all things entertainment in general, and I love creating this content for you guys. And if you want to see more from me, do consider hitting that subscribe button down below as hard as you possibly can, because it's absolutely free. It's very, very beneficial in helping get this content out there to more viewers. That's also where hitting that thumbs up button comes into play. That would be absolutely tremendous if you could do that. And as always, stay tuned for more exciting content hitting this channel very, very soon. Look out for my reviews for The Harder They Fall, The French Dispatch, and Red Notice, as well as all these other big blockbusters coming out in the month of November. The holiday season always gets really busy for us cinephiles, and I can't wait to share the fun with you guys. Y'all are the best. Please stay safe. With all that being said, back talk, commence.